Coming up next from the Pennsylvania State Capitol, a press conference with urban school district superintendents as they address state legislators about the critical need for equitable school funding to adequately educate children in urban school districts across Pennsylvania.
My name is Dr. Juan Vaughn, and I'm the superintendent of schools in the Chester Upland School District. Behind me, you see superintendents from across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania representing urban schools from west to east. You see some of our students, board members, and friends of public education. We, the superintendents of urban school districts, came to Harrisburg today to speak with our legislators about what it is that they can do and we can do to help them improve the lot of our young students and everyone else in the urban school districts across this Commonwealth. We are struggling with funding. We are struggling to make ends meet, but our struggle goes on and will go on as long as we as superintendents have breath to do so. I had a speech that I wrote for this occasion, having been in Harrisburg all day and having spoken with a number of legislators and having sat through the Senate Education Committee for a period of time. I decided that I wouldn't make that speech because I'm not sure how relevant it would be. But what we want everyone to know across the system, it's contrary to what some people think. We as superintendents are not wasting the dollars that we are given. We as superintendents welcome anyone to come into our systems, to come into our schools, come into our district offices, and check to see what it is that we are doing with the monies that are entrusted to our care. In the Chester Upland School District, we have been under state rule for 2 decades. And every time we write a check, someone's checking to see where that check goes. So this notion that we're wasting the money is an erroneous one, and one I like to put to rest. I have a few of our superintendents who would like to have a word, and I'd like to start with Dr. Stephen Butts, Superintendent of Schools in the Southeast Delco School District. Dr. Butts.
Hello and welcome. I wanted to highlight a story. One of our students that I met about over a decade ago, a student that I met during her first year in our school district full-day kindergarten program. She was learning to read. At the end of the year, she still struggled with learning her alphabet. I think she was messing up on K's and C's, so I understand that. But I spoke with Brittany's mother at our music concert that year. A decade ago, we had music and phys ed in our kindergarten program, and Brittany took advantage of that. And she was singing in the chorus that year, and I met with her mom. Her mom was working 2 jobs that year just to make ends meet, but she was concerned about Brittany, concerned that Brittany get a good education and be able to take advantage of Southeast Delco School District. I've been the superintendent for Southeast Delco School District for the last 9 years. Through many budget crises, many budget difficulties. Our staff, when I started, had over 700 employees. We now have under 600 employees in terms of about 300 teachers, 300 support staff individuals. So back to Brittany. Fast forward 4 years. Since that time, we've had to cut the phys ed program at the kindergarten center. We also had to cut the music program at the kindergarten center. Brittany's now a 4th grade student, and again, I chat with her mother during a music concert. Brittany's learning to play the clarinet. Brittany, as her mother shared, was just learning. So a couple squeaks, a couple weird noises were coming out of the clarinet, but she was thrilled that her daughter was able to learn to play the clarinet. She was also thrilled Brittany was participating in a reading program that we had after school. So Brittany was able to get extra tutoring because we had a grant, accountability block grant, and one of the later renditions to fund a tutoring program, along with our 21st century community learning grant that we got. So Brittany was able to get some extra reading help after school. So in third grade, she was at a basic level in terms of reading on the PSSA. In fourth grade, she was at a proficient level, and her mom was thrilled. So fast forward again to last week. We had an event at school. I was able to talk to Brittany's mother. Her mother was beaming, thrilled with her daughter. Her daughter was talking about college, talking about doing the right things in terms of career preparation, in terms of doing something she dreamed about. So Brittany now is in the 11th grade. She was at the school event for National Honor Society. She was being inducted into our National Honor Society last week as an 11th grade student. Thrilled with being able to get the reading help she needed, thrilled with being able to get straight A's across her entire school career, which amazed me. So she is thrilled and beginning to look at colleges, beginning to be taken advantage of what the quality education she was able to get at Southeast Delco. Unfortunately, without additional state funding, our education system is looking different. Our class sizes in kindergarten through third grade are anywhere from 26 students to 30, 31 students. Way too high class sizes for quality instruction to take place for all of our students. The reading intervention program that Brittany took part in had to be scaled back because funding went away. State and federal funding decreased, and we could not offer the same level of services. Even with that, Southeast Delco's overall proficiency rate, grades 3 through 8, have gone up the last 2 years, up over 8% over the last 2 years in terms of students who are achieving at a proficient level on the PSSA. So as I said, back to Brittany. Brittany was a 5-year-old student when I met her. She's now a 16 or 17-year-old young adult, looking ahead toward college, looking ahead toward being successful in her life. And that's what state funding of education can provide. We must adequately fund our schools for our students, all of our students, whether they are Brittany living in Fallcroft, Delaware County, or other students that are living here in Harrisburg or out near Pittsburgh or in Johnstown. We must fund our schools no matter where our students live and what their zip code are. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sybil Knight-Burney, Superintendent, Harrisburg School District.
Thank you. Thank you. About 8 years ago, the Harrisburg School District faced a $22 million deficit. Closing 5 schools and furloughing hundreds of employees was just the beginning. And as if that wasn't hard enough, I, as a very brand new superintendent, was being forced to eliminate music, athletics, pre-K, and kindergarten programs. No new superintendent should have to tell her community that their neediest and most vulnerable student population would be at risk for failure because there would be no pre-K or kindergarten program to provide them with the fundamental tools needed to learn just to read. In a district of 6,600 students, 85% of whom live at or below the poverty level, Every student is provided with free breakfast and lunch each and every day. Pre-K and kindergarten classes aren't luxuries. They are a necessity, an essential part of a child's development. Without equitable funding, students in the Harrisburg School District won't have full or half-day pre-K or kindergarten. Kindergarten is the vital piece to helping our students learn to read. By the end of kindergarten, our teachers have taught students all of their letters and letter sounds. By the end of kindergarten, students are reading. Our first grade teachers focus on teaching more complex patterns. Without kindergarten, our first grade teachers will not be able to recover the 180 hours, which is a minimum of lost reading instruction. Kindergarten lays the foundation for learning. It provides an added layer for children at risk. In a conversation with my literacy coordinator the other day, we did a walkthrough and witnessed a teacher working with a student who the student realized for the first time that she really could read. Her name is Chloe. Chloe said and read, "I run." She looked up at the teacher and the teacher nodded yes. Chloe said, "I sleep." The teacher again nodded yes. She said, "I swim." She looked up at the teacher again, the teacher nodded, and she said, "I walk." Teacher looked at her and shook her head, yes. Then Chloe, with a big bright smile, said, "I can read, I can read." The teacher later was talking with us, just debriefing about the day, and said, "I could see the light shining in her eyes, and she was so excited to be learning how to read." Think about the times that you learn how to read, or that you witness your child learning how to read, or your grandchild. It's so important to grow our students and foster their love of learning. In another class we visited, we overheard a young man sharing his excitement about a new book his teacher had given him that day from the Capital Region Literacy Council. His teacher had asked him to share his excitement with him. He said, Miss Superintendent, we learned all about apple orchards in reading class. Now we get to take home a book about apple picking. This is awesome. I can't wait to share this book with my mom and my baby brother. I was excited because he was excited, and I was so happy that he was going to actually read to his family. But once again, because of inequitable funding, I'm faced with having to stand before my community in the year 2018 and share that we now have to reduce or, once again, talk about eliminating kindergarten. Laws in the current funding system place a very significant responsibility on local property taxes as the primary source of revenue for districts across the Commonwealth, especially in Harrisburg, because there's so much property that is tax exempt. We don't receive funding for 51% of the real estate, and we only receive 38% of that 49%. That real estate includes all state buildings, hospitals, churches, universities, and other nonprofit entities. In order to generate comparable education dollars, this approach to funding public education generally forces districts with lower market values of properties to tax properties at a much higher rate than in other districts with high market values. This often leads to severe inequities between urban districts and other economically disadvantaged districts and their neighboring districts, and can further depress market values within the poor districts. To the extent that there are less dollars available for public education, this leads to the reality of the perception of an inferior educational experience because we don't have the financial resources to properly fund and sustain our basic fundamental student needs. Thus, families and businesses that have the ability to relocate often choose to do that and move to the more affluent districts, contributing to the upward spiral in real estate values there and the downward spiral that often occurs in the urban or otherwise economically disadvantaged areas. Therefore, the combination of unusually high taxes and downward pressure on the market values often also leads to large commercial and industrial property owners filing appeals to have the taxable assessment on their properties reduced, leading to a circular pattern that reduces revenue to the districts, the need for further tax hikes, and more of the same. The annual amount by which the district of Harrisburg is underfunded has been determined to exceed $35 million. We would be able to cut our property taxes in half and still have $19 million of additional revenue, an increase of over 12%. That would equate to a fair tax level for the residents of the city and a likely end or severe reduction in the tax appeals that have cost the district millions of dollars a year in real estate tax revenues. I'm often asked, and I struggle with trying to understand, why is it that our lawmakers don't want our students in our urban districts to receive a fair and equitable education? We all know what the research says. It shows that the earlier we begin in a child's formative years to stimulate their brains and provide them with the tools, they will be ready to learn, to read, and the achievement gap will no longer exist. I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling as my colleagues are struggling to understand why this inequity is allowed to continue to the eventual detriment of our greatest commodity, our children. I stand here today joined by my colleagues, my board members, my staff, and community to appeal to our legislature to provide equitable funding to our underfunded urban school districts. I appeal to all of us today to let the light shine and keep the light shining in the eyes of our children as they discover the joy of reading and learning. Thank you for your attention, and most importantly, thank you for your support.
Mr. Al Johnson is traveling from Woodland Hills to be with us this afternoon. Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon. I'll try to be very brief. Right outside the door of this building, there's an inscription on one of the benches that says, "Knowledge is the only foundation upon which a republic can exist." That is absolutely true, and that is the mission of everybody standing here behind me. We work to provide that knowledge. But we can't do that unless we're supported properly in our efforts to do that. My school district, Woodland Hills, which is in Allegheny County, is essentially 100% financed by the taxpayers. The state subsidy monies we receive, 100% of them for the past 3 years, will go to pay for charter school tuitions. That's the result of what I consider to be an immoral charter school law, and I'm not against charters. I'm against the system by which charter schools are funded. But because of that law, I will receive no money from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for use in my school district. It will be entirely funded by my taxpayers and what little we get from grants and other sources. That's, to me, immoral. And this morning, the Senate Bill 2 was passed out of committee. Senate Bill 2, as some of you may know, calls for the creation of educational savings accounts with money to be taken from the state subsidy for what they call failing schools. I'm wondering where they're going to get the money from my school district for the educational savings accounts, because I don't have any money left. It's all taken. And they call us failing schools. We don't just educate. We clothe our children, we feed our children, we care for them after school sometimes, we care for them on weekends, we see to their physical health, we see to their mental health, their behavioral health. Soon we'll be taking care of primary medical issues for students in school. We do so much more than educate, and we do it well. In my school district, my graduation rate is close to 88%. 60% of my graduates will go on to a 2 or 4 year or technical school. And out of this building came a system that says my school district is failing. And I disagree. I don't think the school systems are failing. I think the system is failing the school districts. And what needs to be realized, and it needs to be realized soon, this is more than just an economics issue. Fundamentally, this is a civil rights issue. Because the children upon whom these inequities fall, predominantly, probably 95%, are poor children of color. That's who's suffering as a result of this system. And suffering is the word for it. And they still call us failing schools. Thank you.
Mr. Mike Vukovich, Greater Johnstown School District.
Thank you. I'll make my comments brief and to the point. I'm honored and humbled to be here with a group of people who really truly believe in all kids, and they mean all means all. I think the system's entirely broken, and the kids who need the most are currently receiving the least. And shame on us for allowing that to happen. I think the time to act is now, and as a society, I think this is the biggest fight with equity we're ever going to have to make sure all kids get the support they need. In society, in life, we worry more about what we dress, how we eat, rather than what's eating at us. Our kids are suffering, our kids are hurting. They suffer through more mental illness and mental trauma today than the 1950s mental patient did. So time to act is now. Our kids are wonderful kids, they're worth investing in, and we can't pick and choose what schools we're going to invest in. As a society, as a country, if we're going to say all kids need our love and all kids need support, then it's time we act and show and put our money where our mouth is and really support all communities. Our kids are great kids, worth fighting for, worth believing in, and at times I feel frightful that we've forgotten about them. Today, someone made a comment that the system is failing, and the person's right. The system is failing our kids, and shame on us. If not now, when? If not us, who? All means all, and I'm honored to stand with these folks behind me to fight for all the kids here in the Commonwealth today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to my colleagues. I want to acknowledge my representative, Brian Kirkland, who's standing with me today. And I want to thank Mark DeRocco from the Schools Administrators Association for helping us get together. And we want to say to you that this isn't about us. We are here because we want to put a face on our school districts. We're here because we want folks to know that we're in need and we need help. I want to tell you my story. I came out of retirement to be superintendent of schools in Chester, Pennsylvania. This is my 5th time back in Chester. I am committed for as long as they will have me, as long as I have breath, to do whatever I can to make sure that our young students in the city of Chester get what they need in terms of an education. I have no idea what that means. We're going after grant funding. We're going after, and I represent the entire group here. I think that we can do this, but as I walk these floors, I see this incredible gap. And somehow we have to help this floor close this gap, because it doesn't have to be. This year, some of you know that Chester High School basketball is a big deal. Well, our Chester High School basketball players, whether they're girls or boys, are athletes as well. And to prove that, we found monies to start a coding club at Chester High School. Our girls and boys basketball team makes up a coding club at Chester High School. Basketball ended for us 6 weeks ago, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They are still engaged in that coding club 3 times a week. Now, why is that? That's because they want to be. And it is our job to see that every youngster who wants to be engaged in an activity after school can do that. It is our job to see that every student who wants to be engaged in an activity on Saturday can do that. And we are not going to be silenced in our effort to make that happen. So thank you very much for your attention this afternoon.